Hello everyone and welcome to Laura May Talks. Today I'm going to touch on a difficult topic that I felt was really necessary given I spoke about happiness last time, and also given in recent times for myself, grief, as I'm going to talk about today, has been something that I've personally experienced a lot of in the last year or so. Certainly something I've experienced many times in my life, but last year was a particularly big one. And I really want to share with you a little bit about my experience, but also just some beautiful things about grief as well as the sad parts of grief. Grief is a very complex emotion that many of us have experienced for different reasons. And it's not something that we talk enough about because it's something very personal for sure, but also it feels like there's an expectation, just like in anything else in life with people. When it comes to experiencing something, people expect you to somehow navigate through it in a certain time frame and then not speak about it. But the truth is, grief is not something you can give a time frame to, and it's certainly not something that goes away. So let's talk about that today. And I would like to share a little bit about a support service that is available for people that I have used myself if you ever need that kind of support. Grief is certainly not just a one-sided thing. It can be varied. It can be all kinds of things. It's not just grief of losing loved ones. So we will talk about that as well today. I really want to start with a beautiful quote that was originally shared by Jim Carrey, and it's his own words. So I don't know the exact original date of his post, but it apparently was shared on Instagram a time ago. So the actor Jim Carrey, who has many other roles as well, but I know him as an actor, so I'll share that with you. He said, "Grief is not just an emotion. It's an unraveling, a space where something once lived, but is now gone. It carves through you, leaving a hollow ache where love once resided." I'm going to skip to the end because it is quite a long, beautiful thing that is shared here, but I think it's important to touch on this part especially as well. He says at the end, "Honour your grief, for it is sacred. It is a testament to the depth of your heart, and in time, through the pain, you will find healing, not because you have forgotten, but because you have learned how to carry both love and loss together." Now, every time I read this, it touches me. It's such a beautiful thing that Jim Carrey has shared here, and you can tell it's definitely based on grief that he knows. And grief, something that we all share in life, is grief. It's something that we all have to experience in one way or another. Some of us experience it more than others, of course, but it is something that needs to be talked about, and something that we need to not try and fix. It's not about trying to fix people's problems. I think that's where we get lost in how to help people when they're going through grief. It isn't about fixing it for them. It's actually just about being present for them. So, another thing I think that we all get stuck in this, what am I going to say? How am I going to help them? Oh, that's really hard. I don't know what to do. Maybe I just won't say anything because it's too complicated. But at the end of the day, isn't it about them? If you're worried about somebody especially, and you think they're going through grief of some kind, whether it's loss of a loved one, or it could be loss of a job, could be something they're anticipating. Maybe they are going to lose a job or a friendship. Those sorts of things are things that we really need to talk to people about, because they can get lost in that grief if they're not talking about it with somebody. They may not be ready to talk a lot, and maybe they just want to sit in that feeling. But if you can offer anybody anything, it's simply being present with them. And I can tell you that from experience. The best kind of support when I've been grieving are people who allow me to be in the moment if I'm feeling it, or express myself if I need to talk about it. And it's not about what you say to me, or I'm sure for any of you, when you're experiencing that, it's about that person holding space for you and being present with you for that grief. And it helps you feel less alone, because grief is, in an essence, a feeling of being alone from someone or something. You might have other people around you. I'm not saying you are alone, but you do feel loss. And the loss of that grief is something that is quite isolating, really. So if anybody you know is experiencing grief, please don't feel like you have to fix it. But if you can and you are able, just sit with them, text them, whatever. It doesn't really matter how you're handling it. If you can be present for someone in some way, even just letting them know you're there might be all that's needed, because grief is so complex and can go on in extremes for a long time, and it never goes away, but we all experience it differently, and it takes different amounts of time to come to terms with it or to cope with it in some way, but it never goes away. So it's something that we definitely need to talk about with each other. And we are human. Part of the human experience is we live and we die. And as hard as that is as a reality, it is a truth that we all have to face. Something else I do want to touch on that I've read in a beautiful article here from Breathe magazine. This issue, I will have to check for you. It doesn't give you a date, but it was issue 46. So it was a kind of recent issue in the last year that came out that I purchased not long ago. And it talks about the long goodbye. So anticipatory grief. And it talks about the lead up to grief. So grief in itself isn't just about when something happens. It can be the lead up to it, that you are already feeling the grief. Maybe you have a loved one who's ill. Maybe you think you're going to lose your job, or maybe you know your relationship or friendship is on tenterhooks, and you can just feel it as if it's happened already, and you're already feeling it. You think, oh, yeah, it's happened. And your body and your mind and your emotions are just going through the motions of trying to handle a grief that is coming or that might be coming. I can certainly tell you from my experience with losing some loved ones last year, I lost 4 different, shall we say, people. One also an animal. But the losses were big in various ways and shocking. But there was anticipatory grief for me, for sure, as well. I won't go into all of them, but I will share the one in particular that's touched me today again, as grief does, out of the blue. My auntie who passed away, my close auntie from my mum's side of the family. She was the eldest sister, and she was also my godmother. And we had a very close relationship, albeit a complicated one, but that was due to personalities and differences as people that we had. But we definitely had a beautiful relationship, and we connected well, and I'm so glad that we had that. But today, out of nowhere, I was having breakfast, sitting out in the sun, trying to get some sunlight and start the day. I was having my food and my drink, nice warm drink, and I'm sitting there. All of a sudden, a kookaburra appears on the back fence. Now, for me, I'm quite spiritual. Some of you may or may not relate to that, but for me, my faith and my belief in the spiritual world and in God, in essence, I guess, is it happened out of the blue, and it touched me. It felt like she was coming to visit with me, and I had seen a kookaburra on the back fence only recently as well, so it came to me as if it was meant to be there in that moment to connect with me. And whether or not it was her, it certainly helped me feel connected to my auntie. And a second kookaburra appeared today as well. And I've actually lost both aunties on my mum's side of the family. So it kind of felt like they were both sitting present with me, just letting me know they're checking in and that I'll be okay and that they miss me all that sort of stuff, without words. There's no words. It's just a feeling. It's just how I feel as I'm sitting there seeing these birds. Now you might be like, yeah, kookaburras. Why kookaburras though? Well, we all have creatures, things that remind us of loved ones. And kookaburras, as it so happens, well, they are very Australian, of course, as well. We're in Australia, so I guess that makes sense. But for me personally, particularly my auntie who passed away last year, she took photos of birds. It's something that happens to be on that side of the family, a love of being creative, and taking photos of birds and nature like flowers and things is definitely in the family on that side. And it took me back to these beautiful photos of birds, particularly this kookaburra photo that my auntie had sent me. And even though I've seen that kookaburra before, for some reason, today in particular, it really touched me a lot. And I felt the tears coming to my eyes, and I felt myself getting emotional. I couldn't help myself. It was like that sense of overwhelming grief that comes out of nowhere, and you just have to experience it. There's no hiding from it. Luckily, it makes it even easier for me when there's no one around, because I feel like I have to sometimes hold it back when people are around. But it's not because I can't show my grief. It sometimes is simply because certain people may not be a safe place or energy for me to actually express how I'm feeling. And that can be the case for, I'm sure, many of us when we have people around us that maybe aren't that safety net. But if you are with someone who makes you feel safe, maybe you can let it out. And I certainly can let it out. Maybe easier, maybe not as easily as when I'm on my own, but definitely easier in their company. So the grief overcame me, and I let myself experience it because it was necessary, and it was beautiful, even if it was also painful, because grief is also about the love that was shared. It's not just about the loss. There is love there. And grief, without love, that grief is probably not really, important, I suppose. I mean, there is different kinds of grief, I said, but in this case, because it's about a loved one, that love is something that we experience when we are having grief. It is because we've lost them, but also there is love there. And Jim Carrey talked about that space where love once was. And that's very true. That's how it feels, because, we're used to, as humans, having these people around us, and now suddenly they're gone. I mean, what do you do with that? It's just shocking. The body, the mind, the spirit, everything goes into shock. How do you handle that loss? How do you come to terms with that overwhelming loss? It's just all-consuming. It's something that is hard to explain. It's hard to describe to people. And sometimes people are really uncomfortable hearing those things. But that doesn't mean it's not something that we have to talk about, because it is. If you're going through it, if you know someone going through it, please feel free to reach out to them. You don't need to fix it for them. And if you need help, you don't need to get someone to fix it for you if you're not looking for that. I mean, maybe you do need a tip or two. That's okay as well. But at the end of the day, when we're experiencing strong emotions, we have to work on it for ourselves. But we do need sometimes a sounding board, or someone to empathize with us, someone to be understanding, caring, loving. You've had something really terrible happen, whether it's a family member who's passed away, or you've just lost your job. It might have been your career. Maybe it was really important to you, or you lost a pet, which can be like family as well. It doesn't really matter what the grief is, but the truth of the matter is grief is something, it is very personal, yes, but we all have experience of it at some point, and it's something that we do need to share in. We will lose many people and animals in our lives, and many things and experiences and friendships and relationships. And if we don't talk about it, we hold it on ourselves to just try and face it on our own, which might seem like, yeah, you just got to get on with it, mate. It's a very Aussie thing to say for some people, perhaps, or in some cultures, maybe it is natural to share with your community. I don't know. But for some of us, we feel that we're a burden for having these experiences, but you're not. I promise you, you are not a burden for having this experience. Grief is such a big thing. It's something that will stay with you no matter how big or small, it's something that stays with you. It touches you. It becomes a part of you. But if you allow it to fester and don't express it in some way, whether it's through speaking about it, writing about it, expressing yourself somehow, letting the feelings out, it will fester and it will not be in good aid for you. It is something that you must deal with. It's something you must face. And I'm not saying there is a time frame on that. We all deal with it differently. So I would never try to assume anybody's grief is the same as mine, for instance. We all have our own ways of coping, but even if you are naturally inclined to retreat, please don't let that be the case the whole time, because you do need to at some point surface and express yourself and acknowledge, as Jim Carrey was saying, it is so important to honor your grief, for it is sacred. It is so important to have time and space for that. Now, in this beautiful article, which I was talking about before, it does go into the different types of grief. So it does talk about loved ones, but also in anticipation of grief to come. Could be to do with loss of work, loss of purpose, identity. And we are, as humans, naturally inclined, as it says here, to be future focused. So we think about things in the future and we're planning for those things. Some of us plan more than others. I'm not saying that we're all the same in that way, but there is still, as a human, that sense of, I need to think about tomorrow or next week for whatever reason. I've got to plan for the kids' party, or I have to go visit a relative, or maybe I have to go to work and I'm not sure how to get there because it's a new location or something. Who knows? But at the end of the day, grief is something that we as people have to face, whether it be in the lead up to it or when it happens. And it's something that you will feel whether you like it or not. It's something that will come to you. And I know feelings can be overwhelming, and I know sometimes it is in our nature to try and pretend it's not happening. And occasionally, that might be a helpful thing. If you're in a place or with people that you don't feel safe having those emotions with, maybe you need to briefly acknowledge it for yourself and put it to the side. Come back to it when you're ready. I can tell you in my own experience that I've had to express grief in various ways. I think people think, if you can't write a song or do something like that, then it's not really like you can express it. You just have to cope with it and get on with it and see what happens. And people do sometimes anticipate, it happened 6 months ago. They must be over it by now because that was 6 months ago. But that's not true either, because time frames don't apply. Grief is very personal, and it certainly doesn't go away just because 6 months has passed, or let alone 6 years or 60. Grief is an ongoing experience, and if we can share in it and not be alone in it, it will help in some way. And it might be sharing a poem with someone. Maybe it's drawing something. Maybe it's being in nature with somebody. If you're not maybe a creative type, maybe it is literally being in that place and saying, this is a place that reminds me of them, and doing something that honors them, do something that you would like to do if they were present, or if it's about job loss, maybe it's finding ways to connect with that job you once had, or maybe a new job. Maybe you need something else to distract yourself. I personally have used movies as distraction when I'm not coping, whether it be about job loss or potential job loss, or loved ones and they're about to pass. Sometimes I do need a comedy to help me when grief is happening or is about to happen. In the lead up to, it's certainly important to have a mixture of time to express that grief, the sadness, but also the happiness of the love or the joy of that person or that thing that you had in your life, or you've had, or you still have, but you might not have for much longer in your life, and expressing yourself with that. Please do reach out if you need support. There's something I would like to share with you all, and that is Griefline. That is actually a service I've used myself many times. Their helpline number is 1300 845 745. They are open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week. You can actually book online to speak with a counsellor as well. So they are a counselling service that's free, no cost involved, about 20-minute phone calls every time you call up, and you can call as much as you need to. And if you have someone that needs help, maybe you can help them by booking them in to talk to somebody. And maybe they're not ready to talk over the phone. Maybe they just need information. I mean, the Griefline website, griefline.org.au, certainly has a lot of resources that have helped me. And I think they have an online forum as well from memory. But please check it out if that's something that you need. Definitely reach out to people you trust and express yourself, whether it's in art, dancing, honouring them, doing something special. I had a friend once who I honoured them by taking part in a hobby that was theirs, and that was learning about different birds. So I bought a book about birds in Australia that I could learn about and see in nature. There's different kinds of ways of expressing yourself. Maybe you do want to write a song, but please do talk to each other about grief. It is so important. It is something we're going to face throughout our lives, and it's something that we will keep on facing. And there will be times when it is a little bit easier, and it's certainly also a beautiful thing, because love is usually behind grief in many cases, or a love of something perhaps. And it might be painful because it might be something that's not there, but it also has beauty to it. I really hope that this topic is something that helps you today in some way, or maybe it's something you need to share with somebody. And yeah, I really enjoyed talking about it, even if it is a difficult topic to share with you all at this time for me as well, because grief, as I said, is something that has happened for me in recent times as well. And that grief is something that will stay with me. But I've certainly learnt a lot about myself and about others, and have, I think, more compassion for people just from going through those losses as well. So grief is certainly a beautiful thing, as well as a scary and very dark thing that we face. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, thank you so much for listening.